like I'm gonna slide. I've never sat up here before and I'm very short. I'm waiting for you.
Oh, we're here. We're say hello. Say hi to the people.
See, this is the problem with not editing things.
Yeah,
It's
here it
just
is,
gonna be
real
what it
life.
is. Okay, so
Hey, Frankie, you
hi, guys.
lost the dog.
Yes, they're fine. We're having a little bit of thunder right now, so the dogs are having a wee bit of anxiety. Welcome back to Sippin and Spillin.
Sipping and spilling.
With
We're gonna be
Sid
sipping.
and Mike, or Mike and Sid, depending on how you look at things, I suppose.
Yeah.
I could identify as you, and you could identify as me.
Stop it.
Okay. Anywho, Mike has switched to whiskey. I am on water.
That's correct. It's that time of day. So, I want to do something a little different than we've ever done before. And some of y'all are watching this going, what are you talking about? It's your second video ever. Yeah. That's because...
This is not our second video. This is episode 3.
our third video ever.
He's fired. I'm now taking applications for replacements.
But even on our old platform and the newer version of the old platform, this is not something that we've ever done before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt. Now, I went to school in Tennessee, and learning was not the emphasis. If it was deer season, tobacco season, hay season, school was not in season. But I'm going to attempt to read you guys a story. What? I'm just saying.
There's so much. I just can't.
I'm going to attempt to read you guys a story, and then I'm going to explain to you why this story is important and how this story really plays into a subject that is very near and dear to us right now. And I hope it's near and dear to you as well. And maybe you didn't realize how important this was, and we bring it to your attention, some of you, so that you can act on it. You could tell by the pace of things it was getting on to fall. The streams were low and the lakes down. Hunting season was coming on, and every kid from 10 to over 60 was feeling a certain unease and lack of concentration. Visions of 4-point bucks, drake mallards, and pheasants on the rise occurred at the most awkward moments. These were the pleasant daydreams of fall for everyone I knew. Everyone, that is, who counted. Grandpa was no exception. It seemed he daydreamed almost as much as I did, but his daydreams didn't always match the seasons. For instance, in February, when snow was on the ground, he would start talking about warm weather and fishing. Then in August, when the fishing was really good, he'd mumble about nice fall days when the air is crisp. Anyway, this particular day in late summer, when I was down at the boathouse, when I went down to the boathouse and found the old man inspecting a couple dozen decoys instead of messing with his fishing gear, I should not have been surprised. "You know something, kid?" he asked, looking up from his decoys. "What?" I was all ears. "I'm getting sick and tired of cleaning all those fish you've been catching. What do you think about that?" I was speechless. For the past 2 months, we had gone through agonies in search of native trout and struggled to reach places even a goat would pass up. And here, out of the clear blue sky, Grandpa was acting like it'd been a waste of time. Worse, he was letting on he didn't even care. "Well, what do you mean?" My voice was weak and stammering. "Don't you want to go fishing anymore?" "Oh, I'm not against fishing," he said. "It's just that we got more important things to do than just fish." "Just fish?" I was dumbfounded. This was heresy. How could the man even talk that way? Like, what? I demanded. "You just tell me one thing that could be more important than going fishing." The tone of my voice registered shock, and I unwittingly played into the old man's hands. "Well," Grandpa drawled, "how'd you like to take a ride into town? I'll tell you on the way." I knew something was up. Grandpa didn't go into town on a whim. He had to have a good reason, and mostly 2 or 3. Every time I asked him if we could ride in and buy a few spinners or something, he'd make up an excuse not to go. They ran the gamut from "we ain't got time to be running all over the country" to "don't you know there's a war on?" Never mind, the war had been over for years. When it came to driving into town, I concluded it would take more than a war to get him moving. We'd just gotten onto the main highway when Grandpa opened up with a question. Alan, how old are you? About 10? It was calculated to get my goat, and I refused to rise to the bait. Well, I'm old enough to handle a boat and motor by myself, and I can fish all day. Let's see, that's pretty old. I'd say about 20. Grandpa guffed and almost ran off the road. He knew I was on to him, and he decided to come clean. I figure you're old enough to get a hunting license. If you're 14, you can go by yourself, but since you're 12, I figure I better go with you. I tried to act bored, but couldn't pull it off. A hunting license, I shouted. You mean we're going to go hunting? My pulse rate jumped about 200 beats per minute, and I almost said, it's about time. At that second, however, a caution light went off in my brain. I didn't want to get my hopes up for nothing. Yep, we're going to do some hunting, and you need a license. Grandpa seemed in an expansive mood. We're also going to get the fish and game laws, and you better read them, or we won't go hunting. The old man still had a grin on his face, so I knew he wasn't making any dire threats. All the same, I distinctly remembered Dad saying Grandpa took his hunting more seriously than death and taxes. I got back to asking questions. Grandpa, we don't have to read all that stuff, do we? The old man bristled. Now how you going to explain to the game warden after you've taken a shot that you didn't know what season it was? I didn't answer. What was worse, I knew I couldn't answer. I'm sorry, Grandpa. I just didn't realize. His voice softened. I know he didn't realize. That's because you don't have any experience hunting, but you will. You'll get plenty of it over the next few years, and I want you to remember that a hunter in the field is a sportsman, and off the field, he's a gentleman. I nodded. Grandpa was the old school and believed that starting out with an understanding of the basic rules not only made a difference in the quality of one's hunting, but also prevented carelessness and disaster. We drove for a while, and then he spoke up again. Alan, you know much about shotguns? Like shot sizes and gauges and that sort of thing? I tried to put up a good front. I read about them in magazines, and I know about 12 gauges. Jack Strump has a single shot, and he let me shoot it. Then, with a mischievous look on his face, he said, well, if you know so much, what do you suppose would be a good gauge for a youngster your age? What do you mean, Grandpa? Well, I'm asking you, tell me what kind of gun we ought to get you when we get to town. Suddenly it hit me. I was about to receive my first shotgun. Now, there's a couple more pages to this short story, 3 more pages, and if you guys want to read it, you should, along with all the rest of the stories in this book. But I want to talk about why that story is so important to me right now, and us, I think, right now. Although this is the first time Sid has ever heard that story.
This prior to,
I first read this story in Field and Stream magazine in September of 1986, and I was Frankie's age. And that's probably about the year that I got my first shotgun. And where I'm going with this is that life then was normal. And the world that so many of us are surrounded by right now is actually not what I feel should be normal. What has become normalized is breaking us. It's tearing apart some of the fabric that used to be what held us together. And not only as family units, but as Americans and as freedom-loving, seeking people, and people who could sustain themselves and who could learn to rely on themselves more so than relying on a system or a government, right? Field and Stream magazine, I'm gonna have a sip because we're sipping, right? Field and Stream magazine came out every month, still does. And when I was a kid, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I looked forward to that issue of Field and Stream magazine. It had awesome information about hunting and fishing and stories about, you know, the rut and the spawn and, you know, different variations of tying flies and different times of year to present what baits. But the most important thing that Field and Stream had in it was a story. called Grandpa and the Kid, written by Dan Sisson every month. And every one of those stories was powerful and really not only highlighted the relationship between this young man and his grandfather, but what being a young person in America was, right? And that's almost lost. I think that is almost lost. So this is a more serious
Yes, it's
edition
very somber today. My goodness.
of Sippin and Spillin, but I'm spilling this, and I'm going to tell you why I wanted to spill this. You know, I could have saved this for later on when this channel got a little more established and more people were going to see it. Maybe I'll get lucky and some people will come back and see this after it does, but right now is when this is important to me. Our daughter's 12 years old. We have actually taught her how to shoot, a rimfire rifle, a real rifle. Graduated her from a BB gun to a rifle.
We put that video, instead of putting it on 3 Mississippi, we put it on the Patreon for free.
We did.
So everyone could see it because we didn't want to risk a strike. So.
You know, we're in their sandbox.
Yeah.
We have to play by their rules. There are ways we can flank them. There are things we can do. We can share our opinions. We can exercise our free speech. But when they write rules that have to do with firearms and certain scenarios and situations and the age of people involved, if we don't follow those rules, then we don't get to talk to you at all anymore. So, so that's what we're doing, is we're figuring out, our own way to talk about how important we feel firearm safety is to youths, and not only the firearm safety, but the what comes after that. The freedom of going out in the field and hunting. It's not for everybody. Your 12, 13, 14-year-old may not want to go hunting, but they may very well enjoy target shooting. And what they will get out of firearm safety is firearm familiarity. Okay? People who grew up in San Francisco, raised by millennials who had never seen a firearm that wasn't on a video game, are terrified of firearms, and they think that they're the devil, and they think that they should all be banned because all they do is hurt people. Well, I mean, all cars do is hurt people. Oh wait, that's not true. That's not true. We hear about the car accidents, but we don't hear about every single time you got to soccer practice safe. Nobody talks about that, and it's the same thing with firearms. And kids in that age group, ooh, here come the thunder.
Got some storming happening.
Cheers to that. Hey, rain's good. We love rain, right?
Yeah. Rain makes corn, corn makes whiskey.
Oh yeah.
Very cool.
So look, kids in that age range, they are so capable. They can understand rules and structure and danger and safety, and
let's clarify. I think some can. I think there's a precursor to just, they're 12, they can handle that. I think that they have to be raised in a way that they have had responsibility, they've had chores, they understand, I think to some degree, in reference to hunting at least, they need to understand where their food comes from. Right. And in that type of situation, they have to be ready for that and understand the full circumstance, the full situation, I think. And I don't know if I've met some 12-year-olds that are very responsible and can handle. Our dogs are freaking out.
They're losing it.
Losing it.
Frankie was supposed to keep them out of here, but she
come here.
took off on her
Lucky,
duties.
Come here, sit. Hey,
no, she's gonna knock that camera over.
We're fine. It's fine.
I tried.
That's not okay. That's not
Saturday,
okay.
come.
They're fine. They'll be
okay.
fine. They'll be fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
That thunder lit them off.
It did. That was a big one. They don't
Yeah.
like it.
You're really
But
okay.
I think, with kids, it just depends on, your kid. You know the level of responsibility that they're capable of, just like you know yourself. You know the level of responsibility you're capable of. You may look at yourself and go, I have not maybe given my kid enough responsibility. I maybe not put them in a place where they would be responsible enough by that age to do that. Maybe I can course correct and start giving them some more responsibilities. I mean, from a very young age, and partially because Frankie's an only child, I've always given her, I guess, extra responsibilities in some ways. Like, she started making her own breakfast at a very young age. Like, I think she was still in preschool, and she started making her own oatmeal in the morning in the microwave, because that was something that she...
If I could teach her to make whiskey.
But I mean, things like that, she's taught her friends how to make scrambled eggs, and they were like blown away by the fact that she could cook her own eggs. And it was like, well, yeah, of course, because I taught her how to, she like... You have to, it doesn't start all at once, is my point, I guess. You have to build up to them having a certain level of self-assuredness and responsibility in their place in the family before they can feel secure and responsible in their place in the world. And I guess that's kind of the point I was making.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and just us talking to you, whoever's on the other side of this lens.
Well, nobody right now, but they will be when it uploads. Right now, we're just...
And I might be talking to, a 16-year-old in Australia right now,
And
who's
that's
like,
not creepy at all.
"Yo, mate, they took our guns away like 30 years ago, right?" Or I might be talking to a 35-year-old, woman in Canada right now. But I know for a fact that we are talking to a lot of Americans.
Yeah.
And
Solidarity.
a variation of Americans. Not everybody that watches channels that are in our genre are people that do the things we do.
Right.
Some of them are people who are entertained by the idea of what we do, and maybe they might want to get into it at some point. And then some of them are people that do what we do, and they're just looking for our way of doing things, and we're looking at their way of doing things. And there's so many reasons that people watch whatever they enjoy watching, on a channel. So with all of those different types of people that might be listening to this message that we're hoping to share with you right now, the reality is that all of you are going to get something different from it, right? You might be in some rural area of Wisconsin, and
Where the cheese
you've got a 10, 11-year-old that can drive a tractor and has a certain level of responsibility, and you were never into hunting. And you might sit here and think, you know what, he or she might be. Let's have that conversation, Or you might live on the 9th floor of a building in downtown New York City and enjoy the idea of the outdoors and sustainable living, but it's just never going to be you, right? What I ask from you then is open your mind to understanding other people and what's important to them. Don't immediately assume that because the life that you live is not a life that includes firearms, don't immediately assume that the rest of us in America should not need them, should not want them, should not use them, should not have access to them, right?
Well, I think it just goes back to like, there's a reason that our Constitution is constructed the way it is in the order that it is.
Right.
Number one is free speech. Number two is the right to bear arms, and there's a reason.
Well, yeah, the amendments to the Constitution. Look, the reality, right? The second defends the first.
Right.
Second defends the first.
It does, and you hear people say that, and I think that sometimes we forget as Americans, we take for granted some things that yes, I mean, obviously, they're inalienable rights for a reason, but it's also okay to be grateful for the fact that we recognize them, that we cherish them, and that we protect them in this great country. And I think that it's okay to be proud of that. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that in the last few years. And I think that's a little bit sad.
And let's not only protect and cherish them to be on a 2A bandwagon. Nothing wrong with being on a 2A bandwagon, but let's not let that be the only reason that this is important. Oh, if the government rises in tyranny against the people, then you ever heard of a colonist that was asked to check his weapons and have them registered? Me either. But let's also let's put that, all of the politics aside over here, not too far aside because they're super important.
Yeah.
But let's also look at if all of that wasn't such a problem right now, we would still be teaching our 12-year-old firearm safety.
Of course. Yeah.
Because she is going to go hunting. She is going to put food on the table. She's
got to start pulling her weight around here.
Right. I mean, look, at what age do you teach your child to put their seatbelt on in a vehicle?
Yeah.
I mean, to some folks who've never been around firearms, who live in the big city, in San
It's a scary
Francisco.
thought. It's a foreign concept.
That's a beautiful way of putting it.
It's a very what is that,
It's foreign to them, and therefore they fear it. And then on top of that, they're getting inundated with all of this stuff from the media that makes them fear it even more. But we don't. So let us not fear it. Let us teach our child to put her seatbelt on. Right?
Well said. Well, that was definitely a little mic rant tonight.
I caught you off guard with that one.
We haven't had a mic rant in a minute, I feel like.
She had no idea what I was about to do.
I didn't.
What road
He
I
was
was
just
about
like,
to go down.
I'm going to talk about this book. And I was like, okay. And then he just, So, but that's what keeps things spicy. That's all right. But we hope you guys enjoyed Michael's story hour.
I won't talk much in tomorrow's episode.
Yeah.
I'll try not to.
I'm gonna make him wear duct tape at the very.
You might have to put a muzzle on me. I
might have to, but we hope you guys enjoyed our sipping and spilling. We didn't really spill much today. I feel like we didn't like.
We
it was
spilled
more
our
of a
soul.
Oh, so deep. I better go get my muck boots on for that one. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thank you for supporting our new venture here with Sippin and Spillin. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And we will see you here tomorrow.